So in an average day, how many hours would you be putting in for the preparation?
Yeah, so I think that this was another issue which plagued me throughout the preparation. So my normal day study hours would span only around 6 to 8 hours. On a normal day, I was not able to put in more hours than that, because then I would get a headache. So to the students of IS Gurukul, I would advise you I would wish you, first of all, wish you a very bright future ahead. And I agree with whatever Pranay said. They definitely work in the exam. Definitely answer writing is a very important part of this examination. For sociology especially, because it's a writing intensive optional. And you need to get into the groove of answer writing. You really need to get into the groove for that, so that your answers are, they can be up to the point, they can contain all the relevant information. So that is an important aspect. And interaction is also a very important aspect, because every student learns at his own pace. Every student has different requirements. And unless you convey to the teacher, like, what exactly are you expecting of him, what exactly are the points wherein you are getting stuck. So I would say that interaction and answer writing are both very important part of your preparation. And my best wishes are with you. Thank you.
Hi, Shresh. I'm sure it's a moment of great pride and happiness for your whole family, for you. And at IS Gurukul, me personally, we are also very happy for you and very proud, and wish you all the best. Now, first thing I would like you to share is the selection of the optional, right? Because that's one thing that confounds most UPSC aspirants. You are literally spoiled for choice with more than 20 subjects, out of which you have to choose any one. Like you, most aspirants do not take a subject of their graduation, particularly those from an engineering background. For the audience, Shresh is an engineer from IIT Delhi, and in fact, he has a very brilliant academic track record. In 10th, he stood All India rank 2, right? And 12th also, he was the district topper. Despite that, he did not choose an engineering subject as an optional in the civil services. Also, his parental background, like his father has a master's in history, but he did not choose that history optional either. His mother is a master's in mathematics, so that option, given his own science background, also was there, but he did not choose it. So, what were the factors that weighed in favor of sociology optional?
So I was very clear that I had to go with an arts optional, mainly because even though I come from an engineering background, and like mathematics, I've studied mathematics till 10th, till 12th, and even in engineering, my interest always lay in arts and literature. So like I was always more of a history guy, or a sociology guy, or a literature guy, rather than a maths guy. Maths was easy, but it wasn't that intriguing or that interesting to me. So I was very clear that my writing skills, my expressive skills, they would come in handy in an arts optional. So that clarity was there. So there were 3 to 4 options before me. Like I could either have gone for history, I could have gone for sociology or political science. Yeah. So I considered various factors. I did not go for history because I also took guidance from seniors who had different optionals. And in history, I came to know the marking scheme was a bit on the lower side. Like most of the people, they got marks somewhere around 250s. Very few people managed to get high scores. So that was one of the factors that dissuaded me from taking history as an optional, apart from the large syllabus of the subject. Yeah. The factors that worked in sociology were that its syllabus is like moderate to low size, yeah, which can be easily done. The paper 1 is very standard, and like if you can quote thinkers, you can expect very good marks in paper 1. While I had taken sociology as an optional in 2016, the paper 2 even was also scoring. So the paper 2 is which is a problem now, was not a problem at that time. Yeah. And like I saw that many of the toppers of sociology, so they got marks in the good range, above 290, above 300. So that was a good range of marks. Also, the material and guidance was available for sociology because sociology is such a popular optional. So that was one of the things that worked in its favor. And because sociology is a writing intensive optional, so that was one of the major factors that prompted me to take sociology. And coming from a background wherein both my parents are engaged in social activities, they both are they both work in an NGO. So I know that the paper 2, the Indian society part, is something that I would relate to. That was a part wherein I would be able to provide my own insights. And all these factors, they combined, and then they led me to taking sociology as the option. One of the major factors that I forgot to mention for taking sociology was its huge overlap with the GS portion, especially the society portion of GS1. The applicability of thinkers in paper 4, as well as the essay portion. Like one question is always asked from the social issues of society. So it definitely helped me in the essay portion as well as in the GS1 and GS4 paper.
Okay. So do you think as a student of sociology, you had somewhat of an edge over students who may have other optionals in the essay paper?
Yes, I feel that being a sociology optional student did give me an edge in the essay paper. One of the essays I attempted was on health and education. And because that is an essay which is such a content intensive essay, like you have to deal 2 topics and separate essays can be written on both. So I feel that preparing for sociology optional ensured that I kept my content to relevant and minimum, while at the same time ensuring that I was able to bring into the the social issues that were relevant to the topic as well.
Great. So typically you do have some social issues in the essay papers, and those
Definitely.
the sociology background students would definitely have an edge, at least on those topics.
Definitely. Yeah.
Shreyas, what was broadly your strategy for the optional subject?
My strategy was that as soon as I had made my first notes, like from the guidance that I took from the different books that I went through. So as soon as I had compiled my notes, my strategy was, to keep revising those notes and in turn to keep on shortening them, because initially my notes spanned 4 to 5 copies of, if I include both paper 1 and paper 2, as well as they need to be updated because, paper 2 is somewhat of a dynamic nature. Things keep happening and they keep on becoming relevant to sociology. Also in paper 1, like, if you go through different tests, if you go through different books, there will always be more thinkers or more concepts which could be added. So my strategy was that before the prelims examination, I had to go through the entire sociology optional syllabus at least once. Like all the concepts should be clear. That was my strategy, and I had also prepared like elaborate notes of both the top papers. After the prelims examination, I shortened the notes. I revised my notes entirely, and I shortened them to only include the like very relevant points: the definition, the concept, the thinker's name. Like 2 or 3 thinkers for each topic. So I shortened my notes, and that was my final resource which I used before the examination.
And how about answer writing? Did you get enough answer writing practice for sociology?
I think that my answer writing in sociology lagged a bit. I was able to write only 3 to 4 tests for sociology, which I believe does not suffice. Sociology as an optional demands that you write at least 6 to 8 papers. If you want to have that edge or mastery. However, what I think worked for me in this in answer writing was that for paper 1, especially what I did was that I went through all the previous year questions and I tried to include those answers in my notes itself. So I was already like well versed with all the questions of paper 1, the previous year questions, and that in turn helped me to theorize, or that in turn helped me to like predict like which type of questions are more probable to come from paper 1 and paper 2.
Great. So if I were to summarize your strategy for sociology, it would entail A, ensuring conceptual clarity, B, making very exhaustive and crisp notes, and C, going through the previous year's questions and incorporating whatever points you can from those in your notes. And one thing which you neglected, but if other students were to be advised, would be answer writing as well. Would that be correct?
Definitely, yeah, that definitely.
Great. Okay, now Shreyas, about answer writing, particularly in sociology, one thing that students ask me time and again is how do you write a sociological answer, right? And that is an acute problem, particularly in paper 2, where the questions seem to be very DS type, right? So what is your take on that? How can one distinguish one's answer in sociology paper for a similar topic if it appears in DS paper, right?
So I would say, yeah, that is a pertinent issue for especially for paper two, and that is something which has plagued me as well as it plagues the other aspirants of sociology. So
Yes,
what I did was that I tried to for example, if an answer is asked in social issues, the society portion of GS1, even
yes,
then we are dealing with the topic in a like sociological manner, at least to an extent. For sociology, what we can do is that for paper two, for example, let's say a question this time the question was asked on Swachh Bharat Abhiyan or
yes,
demonetization,
yes,
questions like that. So what we can do is that we can try to include as many social angles as possible. Like, so what exactly is a societal angle? So I can include the perspective of different sections of society. For example, if talking about demonetization, I
yes,
can deal the impact based on different groups. Like I can divide them on groups. So one of the group could be women. One of
yes,
the group could be the marginalized sections. I can divide. I can take a class based stance. So it could have a differential impact based on class, on caste, on region, etc. So that gives the answer a sociological edge or a sociological viewpoint. Or I could also, like there are different perspectives in sociology. So we have the Marxist perspective or the critical perspective. We have
yes,
the feminist perspective. We have the subaltern perspective. So
yes,
we can, just try to think, even if you are not able to remember any, think of all the particular part. We
yes.
know at least the brief ideology. We know what's the basic philosophy of a particular, a particular viewpoint. So we can try to include those viewpoints. Like this is what the subaltern perspective of this would be, or this is what the Marxist perspective would be. So that is something which I try to incorporate in my paper two answers.
So once again, to summarize it, making the answer sociological, according to Shrestha, would entail looking at it from multiple perspectives or analyzing the impact on different social groups which are present in society. Yeah, great. Uh, Shrestha, if you could share with us what all standard books did you refer to for the optional?
For paper one, I referred to the Orange Book of Haralambos, which I found very good, especially for portions of like stratification. You know, I went through the Blue Book like for very few topics, but the few topics that I went through it, I found it very engaging and very helpful. So
Yes,
Haralambos was and is definitely a must for sociology aspirants, I would say.
yes,
For thinkers, I refer to Ritzer. So one of my friends had made like crisp notes of Ritzer for the
okay,
thinkers portion, and I relied on those notes, and I found them very good. So
all right,
thinkers for Ritzer, I would say. For paper two, I did not refer to any particular standard book. I went through some of the concepts like which were not available in my notes. I went through the IGNU portion, the IGNU BA and MA notes. And
yes,
for some other things, I went through the EPW magazine. So there were some articles which were relevant in EPW or the Indian Express newspaper.
yes.
So I also relied on those portions.
We talk about your general studies preparation. Did you prepare separately for the prelims portion and the mains portion, or was it an integrated preparation? If you can shed some light on that.
So the preparation was both it was structured according to suit the strengths of both prelims and mains, and it
Yes,
was also focused on portions which came separately in mains. So for common portions, for example, modern history, environment, economy, what
yes,
I did was that I went through the standard textbooks repeatedly in order to solidify the concept, and
hmm,
also to ensure that I do not have to repeat it again when I'm preparing that for mains between the time of prelims and mains. So that was one thing. And for subjects like ethics, world
yes,
history, topics which are relevant only for mains. So what I did was that I had went through them briefly before the prelims examination. And
yes.
after the prelims examination, I made notes for them, and I also practiced answer writing for them.
Great. Uh, Trace, if you could share with us briefly what was your daily routine while preparing for the exam?
So my routine, I would say, was not entirely fixed. It varied a bit. I would give you a routine on a normal day, let's say like on a normal aspirant's day. So it was my my concentration span was at its peak during the morning time. So like I always try to obtain the maximum of the day during the morning time itself. So my most productive time would be, let's say, from 7:30 or 8 a.m. to 11 to 12. That would be my most productive time.
Yes,
After that, I would have lunch and a break, and then in the afternoon slot, I would try to do either answer writing, give a test, or I would try to revise something which I had studied on the previous days. In the evening slot, I would again I would again study something new, because my mind would be refreshed by then. So for 1 to 2 hours, I would again pick up something, which and then I would study something new. And the night slot, like, that was the time when my mind was not working at all. It did not want to obtain any new information. So that was the time when I would just watch through videos of news articles, editorials, or topper strategies. So that was the time I reserved for just watching videos or making notes of stuff, something like that.
So in an average day, how many hours would you be putting in for the preparation?
Yeah. So I think that this was another issue which plagued me throughout the preparation. So my normal day study hours would span only around 6 to 8 hours. On a normal day, I could not. I was not able to put in more hours than that, because then I would get a headache. And when the exam dawned upon me, at that time, I am fortunate that I was able to put in 8 to 10 hours. So 6 to 8 hours on a normal day, and 8 to 10 hours when the time required it, like it required it exclusively.
Great. Shrestha, please share with us. You've tasted both success and failure as far as this exam is concerned. The last time you did not clear. So, what is it that makes that distinction, the difference between success and failure of the same person?
I would say knowing the strengths and weaknesses, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses, I would say, is the most important life hack of this examination. Like, there is nothing more important in this examination than knowing yourself and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And that is what has been the difference between my success and my failure, and what has finally worked for me to get the All India 19th rank. So in the first attempt, like, my focus was, it was I had just passed out from college. I knew that there were parties, friends were getting jobs, and there would be parties every day. And even though, like, I had studied everything, my focus was, it was not that much on the examination as it should have been. So that was one of the things that I felt did not work for me in the first time. And also my revision plan was, it was not that good. Like, I had studied subjects 2 to 3 months earlier, and then I did not have a definite revision plan in mind. So in the second attempt, I tried to rectify those. I kept my focus at one point, like Arjun, as they say. I tried to keep that, even though I could not study for those long hours. I tried to keep my focus at least at the maximum. And I made a concrete revision plan. So planning and strategy, I believe, is a very important part of this examination, as well as knowing your own strengths and weaknesses.
Please also share with us what was your driving motivation to prepare for civil services.
So coming from a family wherein both my parents have had dreams of becoming civil servants themselves. Yes. So I would say that it was passed on from them. The dream initially, at least in the childhood, it was passed on from them. And so from the very childhood, like, I wanted to become a civil servant. Of course, I did not know its many manifestations when I was in the 4th or 5th class. But I knew that I wanted to become a civil servant. Then my Mamaji, he cleared the examination when I was in the 6th standard. That was another big boost for me. Yes. By the 10th standard, I was very clear about my priorities. I knew that my interests lay in the arts subjects, that I wanted to become a civil servant because of the right reasons. Seeing that the kind of work that my parents did in an NGO, and the level of change coming from Bihar, I have seen poverty, I have seen illiteracy, I have seen various social problems, firsthand, directly, and that was one of the big boosts. Like, I wanted to do something which would be meaningful for the society, something which could bring a grassroots change. So that was, I believe, that the right motivation started from them, from the 10th standard, and I believe that since then I have been on this journey. During the college, from the 3rd year, I started my preparation. In the 4th year, I delved into the preparation, like, full-fledgedly. Yes. And so that has been the story.
To an outsider, it may seem only 2 attempts, but the foundations were laid down very strongly right in your childhood, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah. That's quite incredible. So you had that clarity of vision regarding where you wanted to move in your life. Shrestha, please also share with us what were the biggest hurdles that you faced, the biggest impediments in your preparation.
So I would say that the biggest impediments that I faced were somehow related to, like, my self issues. So like medical issues were one of the things, one of the hurdles. Like during the preparation, there were various times, like during the fourth year, I was down with dengue and I could not study for like 10 to 15 days. Then there were episodes of viral fever, there were episodes of, so the health was one of the issues. I was staying outside home, and I am a, home food is something like which I always crave. And if I don't get it for a very long period of time, then my stomach starts doing things on its own. So that was one of the issue. Health was one of the issues. The other thing was that, as I said, I was in the initial portion, like in my initial preparation days, the focus span, the attention span was one of the issues. The hours, whereas the hours that I put in were an issue even after I put my complete focus on the examination. Even then, I was not able to put in 6 to 8, like more than 6 to 8 hours. I needed to watch a movie or a TV series episode before I went to sleep. I was like very talkative. I love to interact with people. And but I think like everything manages itself. Once you have the right clarity, once you have the focus, the vision, then you know your own, as I said, you know your own strengths and your weaknesses. So I knew that because I cannot study as much as the other toppers, so I will have to make do with whatever little time I have, and I will have to like strategize that time very, like I would have to be very minute, very precise with the time that I spend. So I had divided my time in slots, like the morning slot wherein I would study the most important subjects. So that is how I got through it.
So, to the audience, I would like them to take home from this answer, particularly that it's not that all toppers study for 12 to 15 hours a day. The average attention span of a student would be around 8 to 9 hours at max in a day, right? Beyond that, you can stretch, but then the productivity would dip significantly. Secondly, you do need some ways of unwinding, like Shreyas used to watch movies or something, because throughout the day, if you're studying, then it gets to you also. So you need those things, and of course, you need that clarity of vision, which he has. Shreyas, please share with our students, how was your interview experience, the actual UPSC interview?
So my interview experience was, I would say, it was quite great. I was in RN Chaube sir's board. My interview was on 18th March, and RN Chaube sir's USP is that he makes the candidate very comfortable. So like after entering the room, for 1 minute he just we exchanged pleasantries, and he made me very comfortable. Like, did you have lunch? Sort of stuff like that. And after that, like my interview lasted for 25 to 30 minutes, and the board was very cordial. I was able to answer most of the questions. I was able to answer just not one question, and then Chaube sir told me the answer to that. So I would say the overall interview experience was great. And at the end of the interview, RN Chaube sir said, "Excellent interview."
Oh, so that must have really boosted your confidence and
Definitely
reaffirmed your faith that you've done well. Finally, Shreyas, if you could shed some light on the role of your parents and the support system, right? Because you are the face of the success, but I'm sure they have played a very important role, right? So if you could highlight that.
So I would say that the biggest factor, or the people to whom I genuinely and I most owe my success to is my parents, and there is like no overestimating that. Like I cannot in any way overstate the role that they have played in my lives, and even in the civil services preparation in particular. So they have guided me at various stages. My father used to make routines for me, like he told me that these were the mistakes that I committed when I was an aspirant, and I would I would sincerely hope that you don't commit those mistakes. So he kept on reminding me. And so, it's very important that you have this support system wherein your parents understand you, wherein they understand your ambitions, they nurture your ambitions, and, they always give you that boost. Like, during college, there were times when my mind would go awry. I would say, like, I just, I am thinking of going for a job. And they supported every decision of mine. Like, they would present their viewpoint. But finally, they would always say, do what you want. This is what we feel. And I feel that because of that freedom, even though they had dreams of becoming civil servants themselves, they did not impose their dreams on me. Rather, they nurtured it in such a way that it became a part of my body and my soul. So I would say that I'm very indebted to my parents. I owe my entire success to them. and I hope and I pray that even in future I keep fulfilling their dreams.
Absolutely brilliant, Shrestha. And I would say that this success belongs as much to them as it does to you, possibly more to them than to you. Yeah, so you are the visible face, but they are the people who are working behind the scenes in a way, right? So they will never be possibly, facing the camera or wielding that power themselves, but they
Yeah.
laid that foundation for you, right? So great.